So I am really excited about this session. The member impact formula is the last step in our strategic planning where everything comes into a clear vision. And then the next three steps are really focused on putting what we've developed and created so far into practice inside of the community and getting the community off the ground and out the door. I've been mentioning this member impact formula a few times as we've been moving through the program because this really is an absolute game changer. Zooming out of specifically community development, this method is core to creating a signature framework, to creating your signature offer, what you want to be known for. I use this methodology for my clients who are looking to scale their solutions and like license a program and certify it. I use it as how people create offers and programs and ensure that they're aligned with bigger things in their business. And so strategically, this particular exercise you may find will have ripple effects and opportunities inside of your business moving forward above and beyond the specific application into your community. The one thing I want you to keep in mind as we're doing this, only because this is what happened to me when I first learned this method, is that to keep the focus for now on the program around your community, because you may find, like I did, that in learning this method, you suddenly want to take a look at everything going on in your business and realign it around a framework. And while that is a yummy and fun activity, we don't have to do that right now. The focus is still getting our community launched and out the door. Why is having a formula that you get impact for your members so essential? It really comes down to your program or your product or your community not just being another commodity, right? Because when you have an offer that looks and sounds like everybody else's, your customers have a hard time understanding why they would pick you over anybody else. This member impact formula solves several areas so that you don't end up with just another lookalike product or another lookalike community or experience. This helps you from having to guess at what to include inside of your offer. Sometimes, as community creators, especially as creators in general, we want to throw everything in the kitchen sink in there, but we're not really sure like what's impactful and what isn't. This will really focus on what will make the biggest difference to your customers. Sometimes we end up creating stuff that nobody uses because it's information we have in our head and we want to share it with people, but we create the content and then they don't consume it or they don't use it. And this will also help us avoid that problem. In the world of AI and using Chat GPT and everybody create a course and everybody create a membership, this is where you can separate your work from the unoriginal, unprotectable intellectual property that's out there and really standing on something that you can claim as your own and protect it, right? So, what that really means is that you're creating this one of a kind experience, but that one of a kind experience is something that can scale. So, in creating this as your community begins to grow, we know that we're delivering something that is impactful. We're confident that it is something that is building the essentials in what somebody needs to experience a transformation. But because we've built it into this framework, we can also deliver that experience at scale to a lot of people without needing to get caught up in burning out and serving everybody individually and in customized offers. We'll dive into that a little bit more. The core of this is that it is a unique program that is designed with the customers in mind first and foremost. In the industry that I come from, we call it customer centric program design, right? This is really about putting them and their needs first and solving based around that. But when we combine customer centric program design with your unique expertise, what we really create is something that is protectable, scalable, intellectual property that helps you stand apart from everybody else that's out there. So, there are a few key mistakes to avoid in this process. One is bringing old ideas to a fresh process. You're going to do some brainstorming exercises. And I assume because you've probably created offers and have programs and things that you've created before, you may feel the momentum to just put in what you've already created already, which you're not excluded from doing. But because of this particular exercise giving you the opportunity to diverge on how you can solve something, it's a great idea in this particular case to wait to bring old ideas to it and see what emerges in the creative process for you. And then later we'll get down to a curation process where we decide what stays in and what stays out. Good, ready to go. The second mistake is that in the customer centric model of thinking about this, we're not thinking about deliverables and we're not thinking about what we're putting into the product, meaning this isn't about Zoom calls or personal attention or support or any of those things. This really is like, I'm promising my target audience that they can go from cliff on this side to cliff on this side with the bridge of my program, but we're not getting into the nitty gritty of how, right? Like how many calls and how many videos and how many workbooks. Like we're just putting that aside for now. I kind of have a tendency as I'm doing this process to get caught up on refining or editing the final language through my model as I'm building it. Allow yourself to like just stream of consciousness and put all the words into it. And later you can curate it down to the punchy, delicious little titles and segments and things that we're going to call it, right? Allow yourself to get it out of your head and really brainstorm before you begin creating or curating. So I'm going to take a little side trip here for a second. When it comes to serving customers and creating a business, you'll often hear things about like creating a niche, focusing on your target audience, and how to really find something that is the right set of people. What I often find that business owners experience is that they think that their target audience is the niche, and they end up finding all these different ways to serve their target audience. Now, while this is a great place to start out when you don't know what your offer is, when you don't know how to really navigate a problem, if you're totally new to creating your own business, this is a great exercise because it helps you quickly identify what you can build to create and serve this person. But having all of these unique ways of helping an individual is a really tough way to scale. And it quickly leads to burnout because every single new client equals a whole new offer and a whole new process and starting from zero and doing it over. And it's not very scalable. The alternative to this is where people will often talk about a niche or they'll talk about what is the problem that you solve. And where this result is where we focus on creating a solution that is solid and serves people, but serves people so well that we can find other people who may also have that problem and solve it in the exact same way. Meaning we've created one thing once, but we can sell it over and over and over and over again without having to reinvent the wheel. Christine, an example of this for you is where you're talking about creating a membership for people, adults who have cleft palate, and then repurposing that same concept into parents of children who may have cleft palate, right? The solution is the same. The target audience changes. Does that make sense? The whole point of this particular exercise is to identify what your gem is and what is this framework that can then be served and scale and have massive impact while not creating 6, 7 different types of things that you have to create over and over again to serve people depending on where they are. Now, this is another way of looking at our lovely little cliff example, but the whole idea is that your program reduces the friction that people experience in going from their current condition to their desired condition, right? Where they are on the cliffs on the one side to where they want to be on the cliffs on the other side. Everybody has the ability, loosely, to find their way to the other cliffs on the other side, but everybody is also dealing with some form of friction to get there. It may be perception and mindset. It may be not having a plan, not having a guide, internal limitations, lack of understanding, whatever it may be. Your program and your formula is what is going to help people cross that bridge to the other side. The one part I want to make clear here is that in creating something that and a lot of different avatars can use to make progress is not the same thing as creating an offer for everybody and letting anybody into the club. I like to use the metaphor of like the velvet rope outside the club. You still get to decide who has access to you and who has access to this formula. This isn't about letting go of your target audience. This isn't about accepting any old buddy inside of the club. Your velvet rope is still very much important. But by focusing on the structure of your formula, you can then scale this to reach other people in a lot of different ways. In the program design, the outcome of this looks a lot of different ways. You get to pick your preferred visual appearance for your model in whatever works for you. And of course, I've got some Canva templates to get you started and some ways that you can approach this. But each of these are conceivably somebody's individual member impact formula. This person really likes using the triangle model, which is something that I've shown you in examples, and we'll use that today. This person wanted to have their steps laid out linearly. This person really felt that their journey was more of a cyclical spiral that continues to evolve, and it wasn't like a one-time thing, but it was continuing to go through and level up over and over again. And then, of course, there's, the Stu McLaren version that is very much the steps and the path and the movement forward, right? The visual output of this is flexible to how you decide to take it forward, but we're going to start with the core information and then you can create the visual that makes sense for you. All right. So, in this context, using Christine's example so far, the next step is to brainstorm all of the activities that her customers need to do in order to go from here to here, right? Let's just go ahead and start that. What activities must be accomplished by my customers to get the promised results? Now, this is where Christine, you're able to brainstorm all of the various things they may need to do. We don't have to do that now, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth here. I really like to go hard on this brainstorming activity because you can basically come up with absolutely everything they could do. They need to this, they need to fill out that, they need to do this guided meditation. Like allow yourself to just put down everything you've ever wanted to create, all of the ideas that you could possibly come up with. But again, the focus is not what I would give them or the content I need to create. This is what do they need to accomplish in order to achieve these results. At that stage, you'll likely have a pretty big list of examples in the context of why this brainstorm is here, because you can see that this is a framework in progress. This is for another program or offer that I'm creating that's talking about that email marketing program. How do my audience create an email list that's like a money tree? They go out in the yard, they shake the money tree, money falls into their laps, right? That's my promise. I have clearly not refined the messaging around this whatsoever. It's in brainstorming mode. So I've got no cohesive plan versus, et cetera, et cetera. And then what must be accomplished? They need to be sending weekly emails. They need to have some automation set up. They need et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, as I'm going through this, I'm basically taking this information and going to group it back into this framework that I have for my program to take the activities they need to accomplish, and I'm going to curate it down to the absolute essentials and then organize it into an experience for my members. So I like to think of this process as like turning a chunks of coal into diamond, right? That initially we're starting with raw material, we're brainstorming, we're going really broad with it. Then we're sorting it into applicable groups. That's where I've kind of taken this list of what must be accomplished and begun to sort it into essentials based on what I know these kind of groups need to be structured around, right? These things go together, these things go together, etc. So at the stage at which I've begun grouping things, then I start to go through it and curate it down to the stuff that is just the absolute must have. So, for example, in looking at my list of what must be accomplished, things like A/B testing relative to promo folder equals death, like promo folder equals death is way more impactful, right? And I'm using this from an example of a program I'm working on, so forgive the context. But I know in going through this list, not everything brainstorming is actually going to make it into my framework because I really want to focus on the stuff that's going to have the most impact and get the most results. This does not mean that these additional bits and bobs don't belong in the program. It just means that I can add them as additional content, evolution to the program, upgrades, bump offers, add ons down the road, right? But the absolute core of my program, the thing that says, in order to, they must absolutely have this, this is the goal they want to get to this place, and this is the promise that I'm giving them. I want to ensure that everything included here actually gets those results. Once we really brainstormed everything, we're still, well, the triangle is just one way of kind of sorting through this idea. And I'll show you another example here shortly. But once we brainstormed everything, the next step is to take those ideas and group them into common themes, right?
Right. Okay.
Then from the common themes, we can go, okay, where do the common themes fit in this model? Do they fit in this model? Do I need to revise my thinking here based on what I'm seeing emerge from my themes? And then we're going to take it even one step further and reduce it down to only 3 actions per stage so that
Got it.
maybe I have 10 steps to accomplish something, but we're really only going to focus on the 3 absolute essentials that will make all the difference in the program.
I also have a question going back to what you said before about modifying the program a little bit to be dynamic between like the two different client or the two different members, but without getting so specific that you're creating unique programs to every member. So
That's right.
I use my reference of like people with a class flip and then parents to children with a class flip. So if I'm understanding it correctly, you would create this general program and then there's just be like minor changes that you would make to tailor it for like a different member, or how would you, or would it just be generic enough that both members would be able to fit with it?
I love this question. So the offer itself doesn't particularly change more or less if it's an adult or a child doing the work, right?
Right.
In theory, it's the same info. The difference is going to be your marketing and your messaging, not the program shift, because the
Oh,
program is the same as the same as the same. But your marketing may change in approaching adults with cleft lip versus parents of children with cleft lip, because parents are the ones who are going to make the buying decision and decide if the program is right for their kids. But once their kids make it in the door, there may be a different approach in how you speak about it or like level of sophistication. But in theory, the results are the same. Build confidence, create a life on their own terms, have strong boundaries, don't get taken advantage of, right? Like the promise is the same. So
right.
why the
Right.
program change?
Right. So the difference, I guess, in my mind, I'm thinking that because the parents would be taking what they want and teaching the kids what they want from the program. And I guess that's where I'm getting hung up. Is like, well, the parents are really wanting it and not the kids. The parents may have a different perspective or a different need for wanting it, but in reality, they're just going to take what they want and just teach it to their children or
Yeah.
use it in helping their children.
The difference that I see in your program specifically is just going to be the term of the tone of voice or perspective, right?
Okay,
With
right.
it is you do this with parents, it's going to be teach your children to do this, right? Or do this
Okay.
with them and speak to them as a group. But the core content, the activities, the promised outcomes, the things that get them these results wouldn't change because based on your expertise that in order to get here, there are things that they absolutely must do, whether they're a kid, whether they're an adult, whether they're teaching somebody else to do it, however it is, this
Right.
formula doesn't change.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
No problem. So there's a lot of different ways that you can work through this process for yourself. I did a bunch of sketching and scribbling on paper using this model. Then the linear checklist type A part of me wanted to go through and feel like I really had it. It's just y- however your brain works to solve this, do it your way. It's not about is it in a triangle or is it laid out in steps? Like the ultimate design is totally up to you, but this creative process and getting it out of your head is the bit that's tricky. So, in this particular workbook case, I have the A from what? Suffering a growth slump, to delivering a focused laser maze. I've got my before state and my after state, right? I also have the three big changes and transformations, right? Laser focus, next level growth, stellar systems that we saw in this same model, right? And then for each step, oops, too far. For each step, I say, you can see here, promise, program, personalize. Same thing here, promise, program, personalize. Same thing. I say this step helps my customer do what? So that I stay really clear. I'm really focused on the detail. This step helps my customers get data driven confidence that their messaging and audience is aligned. How do they do that? My three activities. This is my intellectual property. These are the exercises I've created. These are the workbooks. These are the tools. They do solid bold avatar research. They do member research. They do the undeniable messaging exercises, right? I know if my customer does these three things and does it well, that they will walk away with data driven confidence that their messaging and audiences are aligned and that the next appropriate step for them is focusing on their program, right? So far, so good. This is what it looks like mapped out in a big, fancy triangle version. And I like this because it helps me see and experience my content in a unique way. But this is exactly the same thing as this. Boom. Potato, potato. It's just another way of seeing it, right? This is the same thing as this. It's just a different form of visualizing the information, which is actually only a skip, hop, and a jump away from this, right? Which is only take just the essentials, and we've got the 9 steps. Maybe you don't need 9 steps. Maybe you're like Will House Global that only has 8 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 steps, right? In his framework. Maybe you want to map it out on some big like little document that looks like this. However, right? Or maybe you just love the triangle version of how those things bend together. The final output is flexible AF. What we're working towards is having extra super duper clarity about this part here. What steps, what natural groupings of steps make sense in my customer's journey in order to get results? What activities do they need to accomplish in order to get there? Okay. So, solution that scales is another way of saying your dope program. But we've locked in on the promise of this is where we circle back to our messaging. We've locked in on the promise of our messaging. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm in whatever way you like to achieve the results of my program, to deliver on the promise of my community. My customers will have to what? These are the things that they have to do in order to get results. Then we're going to brainstorm our guts out till we can't think of any more ideas. And then at that stage, we're going to review all of the actions and kind of group them into what seems like natural groupings. Those groupings probably align to steps and stages along the journey, right? They align into groups, and then it's very easy to look at those groups and go, oh, 1, 2, and 3, right? Then in those steps, we want to be very clear what the purpose of that step is. This is where people who don't ask themselves this question can put things that don't belong together in the step, or they can create steps that aren't particularly impactful, right? This is where I want to be able to say step one helps my customer do X. Step two helps my customer do Y, right? And then from each group and step, we pick the three most, this is the Pareto principle where we come down to it, the three most important actions that your customers must complete in order to accomplish that step. So it basically breaks down to having this information for each of those content groupings that kind of have emerged from our brainstorm. When you have this, now it's just a matter of taking that information and putting it into something sexy because you have a framework and a formula that you can follow. If in the curation process you end up with a little stack of sticky notes over here going, oh my God, look at all these cool ideas and it's they can apply, but does it? We're going to save those for course bonuses, for upgrades, for special little thing. But this is really about, again, a customer centric program design that gets the results that you promise your customers and it gets it to them in the most straightforward way possible based on your expertise and understanding of your target customer. Real talk, this is where I caution you away from jumping into chat gpt on this exercise until you're further down the road, because chat gpt, you could say, I want my customers to be able to accomplish this goal. They're suffering from these problems. And ChatGPT will give you ideas, but it will be based on nothing original and not your expertise. And it may not actually be the best path for them. It will just be what ChatGPT assembles as a concept. I have found, though, personally, that when I put in my framework more towards the end and curation stage, and ask for strategic feedback to the idea. And I go, here's my program. Here's what I promise. I'm taking my target customers from this side to this side. And these are the steps and these are the actions that I'm including. What should I see here? What are your thoughts? Give me acting as a strategist, as a program designer, as an expert in customer transformation. Give me your critical feedback to this concept. And it will ask me clarifying questions. It will give me things where it pushes back and forth and where it goes, well, you could do this. And I go, no, I hate that. I think that's dumb. And it goes, well, what are you going to do instead? Well, I'm going to do this instead. Oh, you're right. That's a better idea. Right. Like we don't take chat GPT's guidance like the Bible, but it's really great when you ask chat GPT to ask as a mental sparring partner, because that will help you take this to the next level, right? Even if you disagree with everything chat GPT says, it will challenge you to push you to justify your choices and explain yourself and realize that you've thought this through completely without creating something that's based on other people's ideas or expertise on what they think you should do, right? Okay. So here's an example. This is the massive impact framework. This is where I went through and built this out for myself, right? So the boom side of the cliff, the current state, the yucky state, suffering from a growth slump, not getting the most juice for the squeeze, unsure and overwhelmed with strategies for moving forward, and probably facing a tech snafu or two, right? Two, delivering a laser focused program, charting next level growth thanks to stellar systems designed for massive impact at scale, right? In their business, for their customers, and in the world. That's the massive impact promise, right? Now, how do I think that they can get there? First, they need laser focus, right? In order to get laser focus, they need to get clarity around the promise, the program, and how they'll personalize that experience. The promise step is step one. What keeps me focused and what's included in step one? Whatever is essential to help my customers get data driven confidence that their messaging and their audiences are aligned. How do they get confidence that their messaging and audiences are aligned? They do the solid gold avatar workbook. They do some member research. They do some undeniable messaging workbooks. These are Starlight created activities that I've got my own little workbooks and my own little videos and my own little how to's. But I know that if they do these activities, their promise is locked in. What's the next step? Strategically and systematically plan a highly impactful program that scales with ease. Program. Okay. The magic formula, another word of saying exactly what we're doing right now, the member impact formula, potato, potato, same thing. They'll go through this program design and do this process. Measure impact. They'll determine that particular exercise, next level opportunities, right? If they do these three things, then I know for sure they've strategically and systematically planned an impactful program, right? The next three steps, 4, 5, and 6, are all about next level growth. 7, 8, and 9 are all about systems. Now, mm, my guidance to you is that you don't have to have 9 steps. You can have 6. 6 is also very good, but you can't have more than 9. If you're going more than 9, your program has gotten too big and too beefy and it's doing too much, right? So even this is a lot. This is for people who already have like 500 members in their community. And then we're really going at it holistically. And it really is like a big, big, big machine that I work with people for all of. So this is way bigger than something you need to do. So allow yourself to like keep it focused specifically to the promise of the program of your membership. But this is what it looks like filled out.
Can it be less than 9?
Totally. Yeah.
So
I
what would
would
be like
say I would say no less than 4, no more than 9. How I got to this was I asked myself, what does my customer need to do in order to achieve these results? And this is where I was brainstorming it. Before I started putting things into this process, real talk, I had 100 billion sticky notes with different activities on them, right? Like, I'm a very much paper drawing sketchy person, piles of sticky notes. But then I can see all the sticky notes and go, one activity per sticky note. And I can look at it on the wall and go, oh, this one, this one, this one, and this one kind of go together. They're more or less the same thing. This one kind of go together for the same thing. And now I've got 9, 10 groups of sticky notes that are more or less the same thing and can go, oh, okay, what order do these kind of go in? Okay, great. Okay, great. What order are these going? Okay, now in this group of sticky notes, what one of these, what are the top 3 absolute must haves? And that's how I got down to 9 steps with 3 activities per step. Keep it simple. Brainstorm first. You can do this on your Twitch diagram. You can do this with sticky notes, but brainstorm. What are the biggest obstacles? What do I promise instead? What actions does my avatar absolutely need in order to achieve the promised outcome? And get all of that info out of your head and go as divergent as you want to. And then begin sorting them into common themes, right? And that's where the structure can become important. And then we're going to curate it down to, okay, we've got these common groupings of steps or stages or themes or topics. The language doesn't matter. The format doesn't matter. But we're going to now pull out the most important and most impactful only. Those 3 per stage, theme, activity, step. And go, what is absolutely non-negotiably essential here? And then we're going to put it into whatever fucking visual format you like. Linear with the sound, we got the workbook. You'll have the workbook so you can enter it in there. Cool. Into a triangle that's sexy. Fine. Into a squiggly little snake graphic with steps in it. Totally cool. You can go into Canva and search for like X steps, however many steps your thing is, infographic, and get loads and loads and loads of visual representations that you could go, oh, I kind of like this funnely approach, or oh, I kind of like how these little numbers are squished together. And the actual final graphic visual form is completely up to your personal preferences. My only caution in this particular step is not to start with the visual in mind, because then you'll design to the framework instead of design the solution and then put it into the appropriate visual, right? We don't want the infographic to dictate your program design because they had text there that you were like, oh, I feel like I need to put something in that little text holder space, right? Finalize it. Finalize it means come up with language that is yours, et cetera, et cetera. When we look at the massive impact framework, the language that I chose is specific for a reason because I want it to be my brand. I want it to be punchy. I picked one words instead of twos or threes for a reason. But I also don't want it to be so obvious that somebody could just come and rip my framework. And I wanted it to be original enough that I could eventually trademark it and go, if anybody runs into something called massive impact framework, it comes from Starlight and Bottled Lightning. You can have this. This is what it looks like. Super duper simple. Your big step, the obstacles, the solutions, the steps with the 3 activities. If you want to do the triangle model, this is an example that only has 6, way more bite sized. Doesn't have to have 9, right? This is just the flexibility and final form is up to you. What works is based on your understanding of your expertise and what came as a result of you brainstorming and coming up with your signature, your formula, your member impact formula. This is where I'm going to blow your brains. Okay. Once you have a framework like this, taking it to the next level has so many opportunities. What I'm going to tell you right now, I just want you to kind of like put it in the back pocket of your brain pants to think about later. Because the exercise for you is to come up with what yours is for your community. 4 to 9 steps, keep it tight. What is your member process? Put it into something visual and beautiful. Good. Assignment completed. But when you start thinking about how this can play a bigger part in your marketing, in your business, and how we can take this to the next level, and you know me, maximize the impact of all of this hard work, how can it have far-reaching benefits inside of your business? This is where I'd like you to consider. Okay, lead magnets. We know that our customers need to get lead magnets from us that tie directly to our offer, or the lead magnet's no good, right? We talked about that last session. Wouldn't it make sense that my lead magnets would come from my framework? Totally would make sense. Now, if I create lead magnets around their avatar, their member research, and undeniable messaging, let me tell you how successful those lead magnets are. They're not successful. Why? Nobody wants to start at step 1. And when they're out on the internet looking at lead magnets, they're always looking for the big shiny. So my job in looking at my framework to go, where are the shiny objects in this that I could extract a worksheet, a short video, a little nugget of content that my target audience is going to be super attracted to, that by the nature of signing up for it, I know they're a good fit for this program because the lead magnet comes from the program. I have my little research crew, and I took a screenshot of this and I sent it to some people and I said, out of these 9 steps, which one is the one that you're the most curious about that you want to dive into the most? Spoiler alert, your clients are almost always going to pick 6, 7, 8, or 9, like always, because they want the end result. They want the big shiny. Sure enough, 7, 9, and 6 showed up a lot in people's choices, but 7 was ultimately the most popular. So I asked them 3 questions. The first was, what step jumps out at you the most? And then I said, okay, now take a look at this version where it's the same information, but I've just included the 3 activities. And I say, when you look at step 7, which one of these activities makes you go, oh, that one? And what one did they always say? oh, customer conversion, how to sell it, right? How to close it, how to get more leads, right? It was always a couple of these. And I said, okay, great. Now I can go into my lead capture system. I can pull a lead magnet out of there or a little workbook or something I'm not giving them the whole kit and caboodle of that activity, but I'm taking a little piece of that and creating that as a lead magnet. And I know it's going to be a good one because my target audience told me what they thought was the shiniest object when they looked at my framework. And then they told me what activity was the shiniest piece that they really wanted most. Right. And in presenting that lead magnet, I don't just hand it over and go, here's a dope ass lead magnet and then nurture them on my email list. I say, when I create the lead magnet, this is part of my larger system, right? This is the context of this lead magnet is here's the thing you wanted. It's going to give you results. But if you want real results, if you want to make this a dope ass change, then you should know that this is just one piece of my larger program, and my larger program can solve this as a problem for you for good, right? And I've used the context of my framework in order to do that. So, in sharing this with my target audience to get their feedback on what the big shiny was, I had three questions. One, what's the step without the activities? I didn't want them to see the activities. What's the step that you find most attractive? Then I sent them a second screenshot of the step that they selected with the activities and said, what activity attracts you the most? And then the third question was, now that you can see the activities for all of the steps, what other activities jump out at you? So I don't just have one shiny object. I've got three or four based on what my target audience has said, or that some of them saw what was in level 7 and went, yeah, well, I'll pick this one. But when they finally saw 7, 8, 9, and 10, they were like, oh shit, I've got a lot of questions about tech and digital ecosystem. And I've got a lot of questions about performance and metrics, right? And now in looking at my framework and going, okay, I want to grow my audience so that I have more leads that are a perfect fit for my framework, for my formula. I know what lead magnets to create that pull directly from this program that don't give away the kit. Nobody can like take one piece of this and massive impact falls apart, right? It's not like I'm handing out the expertise of my work without and or cannibalizing my program. But I'm picking the real shiny objects because when it comes to lead magnets, people want the shiny object. They don't want nutrition. Step one is nutrition, right? And when I put lead magnets around step one out into the world, they get no conversion. Okay. That's level one brain explosion relative to the framework. The next level of brain explosion is that not everybody may be ready to take on my whole framework, right? This is independent of your membership. This is just kind of thinking about how this applies in your business in a bigger way. Not everybody is going to have the resources to go through all 9 steps with me. They're not going to have the time to work through all of these. Maybe they've got the basics locked in and they really only need this high touch complicated shit around step 7, 8, and 9. When I go to create additional offers, DIY programs, low ticket offers, like a worksheet with a little video for 25 bucks, a $300 do it yourself program that helps get you started, a $2,000 no hands on support, but it gets you the basics. I'm not going and creating new stuff. I'm going to my framework. I'm pulling the content out of this that delivers on that result and repurposing the exact same thinking, the exact same content, the exact same workbooks, et cetera, in and reshuffling it into smaller offers. You hear that? So maybe somebody's not a great fit for all 9 steps because the truth is they still don't even know who the hell they're dealing with or what they're creating. Now, am I going to take everything from program and have them do next level opportunities or measure their impact? No. This is a great example. My community little launch pad getting started babies, sweet yum yum levels. They don't need all 9 steps of this. This is hella overkill. So I picked undeniable messaging, must have, cannot move forward without it. I picked the magic formula, must have, can't move forward without it. I picked connection compass, another way of saying the lead magnet that we created last week around visibility. We're gonna do the momentum launch from step 7. You feel me? Like, I didn't go and recreate a whole new offer for Community Launchpad. I extracted what Community Launchpad level customers needed from my larger framework. You feel me? Okay. I know this is like, think about it later. Think about it later. But what I wanted to impress on you by sharing this with you is that people like Stu McLaren talk about your success journey. So the core difference I want to make between Stu's success path, where he says to community creators, all you need to do is kind of there's the before state and the after state and the steps they need to take to get to the after state. Cool. Like, that's the bare minimum, but as a strategist, it leaves out way too much opportunity and information
Mhm.
that can be leveraged in this context, which is why, like, this is a crazy ass session and it's messy. And your ultimate outcome is to come up with something clever and simple and very straightforward with your steps and your activities so that the ultimate goal is that your customers can go, where am I on this journey? Oh, I am at stage 2, which means I have to focus on stage 2 activities. And when I'm done with stage 2 activities, I should be able to say that I can do the stage 2 milestones and that I have accomplished those, I've hit those marks, and that I'm ready for stage 3, which means I also know how to go into the community content and find the things that I need, which, as you as the coach or the leader of your community, you can go, where are you in your process? And you know where to send them and and move this all forward, right?
Mhm.
This is helpful in your customers understanding their expertise and growth inside of the bubble of your community, sending them to the right content, keeping them focused on having results. This go ahead.
Well, I hate to keep interrupting, but after one, I actually made a comment, which is along what I was actually thinking is that it's very linear. And I already have something on my website that I use with my clients. I call it a customer journey, but it's not the marketing customer journey. It's basically the steps that I would take them to get from A to B. And not all clients need to do all 9 steps. It would be something like, figuring out your core values and then knowing how to set boundaries and then self-care, which all goes into building confidence. And it's not linear because when they're great at setting values, they're horrible at self-care. So how would this work also with the community? Because that's my goal is I want to expand it to community, but how would it work if it's not necessarily linear, where they don't want to go in those order of steps? So they're like, no, I don't care about setting boundaries. I want to focus on the self-care part.
I absolutely love this question. So I am going to, in the course content, add a link where I do what I would call the choreography of the massive impact framework, where I talk through, let's assume you're the target customer for that. It's not a sales pitch, but it is my describing and going, if you're the right fit for this, then you're the right fit for this program. What I do in that context, because we're talking about people who have established communities in place, their needs are going to be different. They're going to be at different stages of development. I'm going to include the video so that you can just see it in context and see how this would translate and how do you do it. Because you could take that exact same video and do it as an onboarding for your new customers inside of your community, and it would get the same results. What I have them do is once I've talked through everything, I say, let's red, yellow, green where you are in each of these things. And they'll be like, oh, promise, green. Oh, program, there's some things I want to tweak and update, so I'll make it a yellow. Oh, shit, capacity, I'm at red. Oh, these things, I'm totally at red. I've never even thought of those things. And now they have a red, yellow, green chart that actually I have an example of here.
I love that. I love that. That also, and this is also going to help me clarify my message for consult, which I've been struggling with as well. Because
Yeah.
like now I can just be like, if you want to consult, I get on with them instead of saying, hey, what's your problem? How can I help you? I say, because I know that that's what they need to work on. but I can also take it a step further and then like, oh no, I got that. You go, okay, well, where would that fall in the traffic? That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
It starts all the way at the beginning of the triangle, which is this what you want? And if they go, yes, then I go, great, then I'm on the right track. If they go, no, I don't want this, I don't need to keep going with the discovery call. This is what I deliver. If this isn't what you want, we're not the right person. But then I can tell, and these are the things you're struggling with, build empathy, confusion, stagnation, overture, overwhelm. Oh my God. I mean, confusion's not so bad for me, but stagnation and overwhelm, terrible. And I go, yeah, boo, I totally understand. And what would we rather have? Like crystal clarity? Fuck yeah. Next level growth. Oh my God, I totally want that. Stellar systems. Yeah, where everything feels like it's running on perfect. Great. So the obstacles to massive impact are these things. Those are the things you're struggling with, huh? Yeah. And these are the solutions that we want instead. And those are the things we're going to help put in place. Yeah. Here's how we do it. Absolute clarity is achieved by this, 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 this. Yeah. Oh, okay. And now instead of my sending them a proposal with all these topics and the modules and the activities that I haven't talked about a Zoom call, I haven't talked about a schedule, I haven't talked about how this program is even implemented. I'm just getting them enrolled in, is this right for you? Because if this is what you want, this is how we achieve it. And now by the time they actually get into the program and buy it, they know how they rank because they've red, yellow, greened everything. And because they've yellow, red, yellow, greened everything, I know where to send them when they get into the program. And I can say, look, you totally maxed out green on promise. You can go like give it a breeze through if you want to, but let's jump right to your first red or your first yellow and send them to where they need to focus to start getting results instead of saying, oh, you can only do this if you've done everything, which means everybody in my group has to start at zero. That's just not realistic, right? You feeling me? I have a video where I do that as like part of my enrollment with my clients. I'll include the link to that video so you guys can see what we call the choreography of this and how I do this exact same thing during discovery calls. The other thing is that this now helps me understand what I need to create from a content perspective, what I need to create in the world of supporting information, workbooks, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll hear me say this a lot, but the framework is the marketing and the marketing is the framework. Once you have this framework in place, we don't talk about shit that doesn't have any application to the framework. If we need to create content on social media or lead magnets or things to get people enrolled, we go to our framework to find the content to do it, which also reduces our problems with this level, which was this nonsense, right? This is how we go from creating all this random social media stuff, all these random ass options, all these random ass lead magnets, trying to come at the problem from 20 different directions to serve one individual instead of creating something that is so complete and so wholesome that it pulls it all together. Scaling your offer and packaging it up into different things. Outside of the velvet rope is the lead magnet. Inside, this might be a tiny little bite sized offer. This might be a little DIY $300 thing. This might be a 90-day program. This might be a consult. But all together, it always comes from your core formula, right? And this is zooming out of the community and just going collectively with your business. This is where your formula can have massive impact across the success of your business by implementing a formula and a strategy that then you can repurpose and offer in any little mix of ingredients that makes sense for you. And it's still to people you want to work with, right? That's the velvet rope. It's not to any old schmuck. But with this and with these variations, we can literally serve people wherever they are, wherever they may end, whatever their budget may be, wherever their stage of sophistication in the process may be. Like we now have something that we can use to scale and move in any direction, right? What are the shiny objects? Yo, know what the shiny objects are, you know what lead magnets to create, you know what ads to run, you know whatever. This is where like next level, don't think about it now, but this is where we can take this. Is there an on-ramp to this, right? Is there something for people who maybe aren't ready for it now, but would be ready for it in the future if there was an on-ramp? If you think about like merging onto a fast-moving highway, and your membership is cranking and you've got hundreds of members and going like this, but you have a new little sweet baby, what is the content on ramp that gets them up to speed and moving at the same speed as everybody else in your community, right? Where might you repackage and offer this as standalone content? There are things where like I could take a shiny object and make a lead magnet, but the difference between a lead magnet and a paid standalone offer is different in the level of like investment and quality and value that comes with it. But I'm going to do the exact same thing, which is go to my framework and go, okay, what offers here make sense as standalone little nuggets where my audience, maybe they're not comfortable to like fully invest with a big program with me yet, but I can pull things from my framework and offer them as little nuggets to entice them along and get them impact in the meantime. And then, of course, how does this formula fit into the larger picture of your business? Because you can see how this becomes then your method, your way of doing things. It becomes your book. It becomes your signature talk. It becomes your like secret to solving the problem that you are known for solving. Right. And so this may have bigger impacts inside of your business. Getting it done. It's the brainstorm, put it into a graphic. That's what it is. Once you have the graphic that makes sense for you, the next activity in for the focus of your community is to make a list of what you already have and what a list of what you need to create to feel comfortable, right? That's where we then take, okay, the activities and the content and the framework. Now we make a real list of what needs to be accomplished on your end to make this a reality. Okay, that's it. I say that's it. Like that was a tiny little baby freaking session. That was a brain blower. The reason that last week's activity and this one were so early on in the process is because the last activity takes time and energy, and it's not something that needed to be done today, but it was something that needed to be started, and the ball needed to get moving forward. This particular activity impacts where you go with everything else in your community, but it's a real brain burner. And so that's why this one is here. Allow yourself to iterate. I can't tell you how many pieces all of my notes are always like this. Like I've just got a stack of computer paper in front of me and I'm constantly writing and revising and revising and writing. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point where it's like, okay, there it is. And I put it into something permanent. And so allow yourself to mull it over, let your brain work on it. You'll find that it will get to a point where it evolves and becomes clear for you. It's just right now we're asking your brain to likely do something and think about how you have impact and do what you've done over and over and over again to serve people. And we're just like totally asking it to resort how it approaches this. And so your brain is going to fight you a little bit on it. But the inevitable outcome is so impactful, it's worth the squeeze, right? It's just we gotta go with the brain a little bit to get through this next step. But once we've got this figured out, the rest is easy. We're just talking about tech setup, putting things in place, mash and go, right? This is where the difference between you and every other mofo out there with a community is incomparable. It changes the game. This is where you have like intellectually protectable content. This is where you have something that stands apart from everybody else. This is where like you build a legacy and a reputation on impact because you've taken all the ways anybody could get results and honed it down to a combination of your expertise driven by what your customers desire most and put it into something that is scalable and impactful. Solid goal. Okay. If you have questions, you want me to see a version and give you some thoughts and feedback, like feel free, right? Post a screenshot, take a photo, whatever you want. Feel free to use that space to get feedback. You don't have to wait. And next week we dive into a year in the life of your community from a content perspective. This is where we go, okay, what does it really look like in creating content and keeping our members engaged and how you will create the community that keeps them connected. That's what we're diving into next week. But that's a lot easier than this one. This is the real brain ringer. Okay? Ciao.